Amen. You know, it's interesting how I'd almost wish you could be in my shoes for when it comes to writing teachings and stuff sometimes. I really wanted to do either the Sabbath teaching or the calendar teaching, and I just couldn't wrap the whole, I don't know, it just was a struggle. And then yesterday, when I was just really working at this, I just felt like he told me, well, that's because the reason you're struggling is because I want you to do something first. So hopefully it will make sense in the flow of what we've been doing that this is done first before we get into the more contentious things, so that we can understand why we react in a contentious way so that we can avoid that. Okay? So that once we get through this, we might handle the other stuff more appropriately. So we're going to go through this for a couple weeks until we finish it, and then we'll go ahead and continue, unless the Father redirects it again into whatever he wants to do next. And like I've always said, this is about him, not about me. So, when it comes to teachings, it may be something I want to do, but if he wants to do something else, he's not going to let me. And that's the part I wish that you could experience, how hard it is to sit down and work with. I've already got the notes from the previous teachings I've done on these things, but yet to sit down and rework them, he just wasn't letting it work. And so I'm very excited about this teaching. I feel very congruent with that's what he wants. So I hope it was a blessing to all of you, because this, going verse by verse slowly, I thought was just what we needed to do today. Amen. Okay, so this is what we call Afterburn. So if you have a question or comment about this teaching, specifically what we covered today, you can raise your hand and Zuriel will bring around the mic. If you are on the live stream, you can go ahead and type it in and Craig will get that. If you have a question about anything else other than what we have today, we ask your patience in going ahead and submitting that through email or phone call, and we'll try to answer your questions as best we can. And I do absolutely apologize. As the ministry has grown, it is tremendously more difficult for me and Robert to get to all of the emails that come in. So please be patient. If your email has not been answered, it's not because I'm ignoring you or the ministry's ignoring you. It's just getting tougher and tougher with the hundreds that come in every day. My best recommendation is, if it's something critically important, make a phone call. That's the best thing I can do, is make a phone call, and then we can definitely get in touch with you.
This is just a question we can all ask ourselves. On a scale of 1 to 10, how does each individual rate their self as how they're living this out?
Okay, so he said, look, if you were to scale yourself on a scale of 1 to 10, how are you doing in terms of walking this out? Now, if you get a low number, don't beat yourself up. Self-evaluation and self-examination is something that is important that we do on a regular basis, and it's not meant to cause you to be depressed. But I get contacts a lot by people that when they do that, they feel, I'm never going to get there. Abba's not going to let me in. He's just nonstop disappointed in me. We all feel that. All have fallen short. Use the self-evaluation as simply a motivator to say, I need to brush myself off, stand up, and start moving forward again. Okay? Maybe with a little bit more effort, or maybe with a little bit more focus, or whatever it is. Okay? But that's what we should be doing. And by the way, I didn't mention this earlier, but the Get Out the Leaven teachings are now being posted. And we do actually have the 3 of them on the table there from Unleavened Bread, and that deals with the same idea, this idea of self-examination. Okay? So that's why I brought it up, is because when you do the self-examination, that's the whole point of those 3 teachings, is to talk about what you should be looking for and how to go about that. So you may want to listen to that series. Part 1 just got posted this week. Part 2 will be posted next week on YouTube and on our website. But if you're here, all 3 parts are on the table.
I was thinking about the scriptures that would possibly have a fulfillment of unity imminently soon. I'm praying, and would you be presenting that in the near future? All the scriptures that talk about unity before Yahshua comes.
Okay, we will see how that will play out as I put this together in terms of fulfillment. Ultimately, we did talk about that in the identity teaching, because we talked about Ezekiel 37. Okay, and Ezekiel 37 is ultimately where the unity will ultimately come from. The 2 sticks coming together with one as their king, with one teaching. So I don't think that the world gets very unified. It's the body that has to get unified right now. The millennium is for the bigger group to get unified during. But right now it's us. We have got to get unified. Okay, so I don't know if that means anything about the two sticks or not, because that's really more of a fulfillment when Yeshua returns. But between now and then, we certainly could work on unity within the body. And the thing is, it's not going to happen. Well, let's put it this way. If I put a target somewhere and I gave you a gun or a bow and arrow or something to shoot at the target, if you don't aim at the target, you're never going to hit it. Okay? So in other words, if you haven't chosen unity as the target, we're never going to get there. See, the problem is the body hasn't chosen unity as a target. Look, every one of us who's over the age of 40 or 50 has probably been in a multi-level marketing thing at one point in your life or whatever. I remember getting a newsletter in the mail. It was like some sort of just, junk mail from a newsletter for a multi-level marketing newsletter, whatever. But there was an interesting article right on the cover that got my attention. Otherwise, I was about to throw it out. That said, the reason you're not a millionaire. So I read the article, and you know what the number one reason is that most people are not millionaires? They never chose it as the target. You don't accidentally become a millionaire. Well, guess what? You don't accidentally become unified or come in unity. You don't accidentally, in other words, you have to choose it as a goal. All right? If you choose, let's say you decided you wanted to be a dentist, or you wanted to be an electrician, or you wanted to be whatever, it just doesn't just accidentally happen. You choose it as a goal, and then you start saying, oh, there are things I need to do to get to that goal. But first you have to choose it as your target. You see? And so, there are people that struggle financially. There are people that struggle with their health. You know what? Instead of whining and complaining about it, choose the target of health or financial freedom, and then guess what? You'll start to figure out what to do to accomplish those things. But if you're going to keep living your life the way you have, the things that are wrong in your life, relationships, health, finances, whatever, they're not going to get any better until you choose it being better as your goal and figuring out how to do it instead of just whining about it or putting Band-Aids on it. Okay? But you can choose the goal. None of you are too old to change the way you eat, the way you live, the way you exercise, the job that you have. Any of those things can still be changed. Because every one of you says, I'm too old, I'm too this, I'm too that. There's somebody older than you or whatever it is that you are who has it worse than you have that's done it already. Think about it. So why can't we as a body choose unity? And by the way, that's going to be a big part of the teaching on making the calendar decision, because the decision I made, the number one driving force was choosing what would accomplish unity. Okay? It wasn't about choosing the one that I could defend that was perfect and right and correct. Not that I chose a wrong one on purpose either, but you understand what I'm saying. The driving force was seeking unity. And so if we don't have that as a target, we're never going to hit it. Okay? It's kind of like pin the tail on the donkey, right? We used to take the kid and spin him around. Okay? But we're not talking about being spun around and kind of pushed towards the target. We're talking about being in a giant world. The target could be anywhere unless you pick it. And then saying, oh, it's over there. How do I get there? Let's choose unity as a target that we all want to aim for. And then find out through this teaching series and your own study, what is it going to take to get there? What is the process? What things have to be accomplished and done to get to unity? If that's the goal. Because if you decided to be whatever it requires, a professional, anything. We have nurses in the room. We've got, locksmiths in the room. We've got people that have careers that need certain skill sets. Guess what? At some point when they decided that's what they wanted to do, they had to find out what skill sets do I need to do that so that I'm qualified to do whatever it is. Well, as a body, we're supposed to be a body, not 57 pieces of a body or 5 million pieces of a body.
Rabbi mentioned that the body of Messiah has different gifts to serve one another. How can we learn to tap into understanding their gift for serving the body? How can one learn to tap into understanding their gift?
Okay. This is, again, trying to overcome Christian mindset. Okay? You are what you are. There's nothing to tap into. Ask your friends to help you understand what you already are doing that's gifted. Okay? Nobody has to go tell a bird it's a bird and that flying is part of what it does, or a fish that it swims. Okay? You already are doing whatever it is. You just don't realize it. You don't realize that what you're doing is blessing people. You don't realize that what you're doing is a gift. You're wanting something much. We're going to get into this in the next coming Torah portions with Korach. Korach didn't like his job. Well, I want to do one of those fivefold things, or I want to. That's Christian mindset, is looking for all of your answers in the listings in Paul's writings of what he calls gifts or talents. No, he's talking about that from a leadership point of view. There are people that have some of these gifts because they're needed to lead in the body. But you know what? The body only has so many leaders. Look at how many men were picked as leadership when they were coming out in the book of Numbers. We talk about the men it was just one person per tribe. And then there were heads of hundreds and tens and 50s. But what did everybody else do? Nothing? No, they had their roles. But you're already doing it. Be encouraged that it's not something that you need to go learn. You already have the skills and you already do it naturally. That's my point. Okay? I have to work at and think about lots of things that I do in life, and other things come easy. By easy, it doesn't mean it doesn't take a lot of effort, meaning to do in terms of I have to, but it's not hard. It may take time, but it's not hard because they're my gifts. Then there's other things that you might do real simply that I struggle mightily to do because it's not my gift. And so, I could learn how to do things on my car and do mechanical stuff. I'm not a mechanical person. But I can fix a few things when I have to. But if I did it, somebody in the room who's very talented at that kind of stuff could do it in 1/5 the time and better than I would. Why? Because that's where their gift and talent is. Okay? So you already have these things. And if you don't know what they are, ask your pastor, rabbi, ministry person. You ask your best friends and close friends and say, what are my gifts? What is it that you see me doing that I have that blesses people? What are my strengths in terms of the body? Like I said, some of you are just really better at interpersonal relationships. Some of you are better at organizationally. Some of you are better at just fill in the blanks with all the million things that people can be doing that the body needs. Look at your body. You have ears, nose, mouth, eyes, skin, fingers, toes, knees, elbows, arms, legs. I mean, there's all these parts, right? And then we go inside the body. You got heart and lungs. All those things do different things, but they're still part of the body. Okay? And so this is what's important for you, is to realize you're one of those millions of parts. Because then we go inside the organs and we get to the cells. And the cells are different. And inside the cells there's different things. So there's so many different things as parts. You're just one of those parts that you need to embrace your part in it. Abba put you there. As a matter of fact, I can promise you that if you're not here, we all notice. Not because we're taking attendance, just because something is missing that you bring. That when you're not here, we all feel it. It's just not the same. It doesn't mean like, well, when Rabbi's not here, not teaching, then we feel it. No, if any of you is not here, we feel it. Because you bring something that you're supposed to bring into the mix that we feel missing when you're not here.
You mentioned that we must be discipled before we disciple. If we are alone and fellowshipping with you online, how can we know when and if we are ready to disciple others?
By talking with the one discipling you. So if I'm the one discipling you virtually, then we need to talk. Okay? Because it's the teacher that sends out the student and tells them you are ready. Yeshua sent them out, remember? And he sent them out more than once. Because the first time he told them, he said, look, can you go to one town? If they don't receive you, just brush yourself off and go. I mean, he did send them out. But it's the teacher that sends out the students. So you need the teachers. And that's what you also see in Ephesians chapter 4, is that it's the anointed appointed. In chapter 4, you also see this with Moses, that goes and anoints and appoints the next one to do. No self-appointing.
I really so appreciate this, Rabbi Steve. And I want to just confess that this week, Father has really been taking me deep in a very realistic look at myself. And I have seen some self-righteousness in there that judges people, just sometimes little things. And sometimes, because I want to be compassionate with the person I might be listening to, and they will tell me something that someone else has done, and I will take up the offense. I will judge and say, well, wow, what's going on with them? You know, thinking that I'm being compassionate to the person I'm listening to, but Father's been showing me actually I'm judging, I'm sowing discord. I'm putting just that little raising of the eyebrow or that tone of voice, and that person who's talking to me is getting the, you know, the message, okay, this person that did this or that is worthy of, you know, not quite so much respect. And Father's really been convincing me, this is not producing unity. This is not loving me the way I want you to love me. So I praise him because I've been on my knees. He has forgiven me, and he's going to help me. But I ask your help too. If I have done this with you, or you know someone that you feel that I've had a judgmental attitude toward, catch me on it, please.
Amen. Amen. Let this be an instructional moment for everyone. If you are talking to anyone and they're talking about a situation or whatever, that you are not to take sides because you don't know what happened. Our tendency is to believe whoever's talking to us. Or if we're more close to the person being talked about, then our tendency is to take the side of the person that is being talked about and be defensive of them because that's the person that you're friends with or know better or whatever it is. You still don't know what happened. So you should have no opinion on either side. You can listen. You can be a listening ear and an encouraging ear about maybe how they should talk to the ministry or to go talk to that person directly, whatever it is that you may want to counsel them about. But take no personal thought about who's right and who's wrong because you don't really know what happened. That's the hardest part. We always believe one side or the other from half a story. We really do. We instantly take a side. That's the first mistake. Don't take a side because you don't know. And you'll come to find out often you got it wrong because the person talking to you had it wrong because it was filtered through their emotions and their situation and their perception. So that's number one, is don't take a side. You can be empathetic, you can be sympathetic from the point of view of I can understand if that's the way you feel and that's what you feel happened, why you would feel this way. But, I don't, always say, look, but I don't know what happened. I wasn't there, so I'm not taking any sides. Okay, but if that is what happened, I certainly could understand why you'd be upset or whatever it was. But I would encourage you then to either go seek the person, that would be the first choice. And if you don't think that's possible, then go seek leadership to help deal with that, whatever it is, But be careful that you don't get caught up in taking a side, because to take a side, you have to judge. Okay? And so that's the long way of getting to what you said, which is you're now stepping in the judge seat if you start taking sides. Okay, so don't take sides when you're hearing only half a story. Everybody who calls me to counsel, I tell them the same thing. If it's a husband-wife situation especially, okay, I've just heard everything you said, but I will tell you that doesn't mean for a second that I think I know what really happened. And then if I talk to the other one, I tell them the same thing. And if they're both in the same room talking to me, I still will tell them the same thing, that I only know that what they agree on is what happened. The stuff they don't agree on, I have no idea who's right. And that's not my really issue for me to figure out who's right either, is to help them work through it, whoever's right. All right? So let's just be really careful that when we're hearing from a person and we weren't there, you don't really know what happened. Oh, but can you believe so-and-so did such and such to so-and-so? How do you even know that happened? Well, because so-and-so told me it did. Were you there? No. Then how do you know it happened? You don't know what happened. Okay? So be careful. People might tell you what's going on in their job, and you may think, man, I can't believe so-and-so's boss is so blah, blah, blah. Maybe the boss isn't blah, blah, blah. The person's just filtering it through their own not liking the boss. Then you're judging that boss you never even met. Be careful only hearing one side of the story. All right, anybody else? You can go ahead and get another one.
Thank you.
You can have two.
I can have two. Thank you. Oh, wow, I'm blessed. I was listening to this as you spoke this message, and I remembered that just 2 chapters earlier in John 15, he shared with them about the vine and the branches and stay in me and I stay in you. And we got to verse 21 and following, and there's this amazing, this big crowd of ins. The Father in Yeshua, Yeshua in the Father, Yeshua in us, Father in Yeshua. Father's love for Yeshua to be in us. We are one in both Father and Son. And I thought of how we had sung this morning, in your presence. That's a really awesome message.
Amen.
To be in. However, I do have a question.
Of course, John 15 is already part of the solution part of the teaching, so you're stealing.
Oh, I always do that to you. I'm sorry.
So, but in case I didn't, though, I wrote it down just to make sure. John 15 is part of the solution to all this.
Yes. Okay.
All right.
This whole thing about, all right, this in thing. If I get in my car isn't in me. I'm in the car. So obviously, at the end of chapter 17, we're seeing a spiritual mystery about we're in him, he's in us, he's in the Father's in us. Do you have any comment on how this works, or is it just something that we don't understand?
Not a clue. No, I'm kidding. All right, it's actually not very complicated. It sounds complicated, but it's not very complicated. Okay, so when he says, I'm in you, this goes to all of the verses that talk about things like in John 14, when he talks about he's coming to you, he's not going to leave you orphans, through the Ruach HaKodesh, how he's in you, the word is in you. And us being in him, he is the body of Messiah. I mean, we are the body of Messiah. We are in him, okay? So we are in him in that we are his body, and he is in us in that it's the word, the Torah, the word is in us. Does that work for you? Okay? So it really wasn't that complicated because we're talking about two different things. See, when we're talking about I'm in my car, okay, well, the car can't really be in us because now we're talking about more concrete type of things. We are in him as we form his body. He is in us in that we have the indwelling of him in us through the Ruach. Okay? So hopefully that kind of works for everybody. So if we stay in him as staying in the body of Messiah, and his word stays in us, which keeps us in the body, that's how we get there. All right? And we'll cover that again in a couple of weeks.
I just wanted to thank you for mentioning works and that it doesn't have to be something, grandiose. Like I mentioned last week, I'm a housewife and I'm just alone a lot of the time. I heard a pastor once talk about discipleship and how to add to the community. And I was sitting there, and this happened a couple weeks ago, and I was just sitting there thinking to myself, well, I'm home all by myself. How do I do this? And it was just, eating away at me. And Father spoke to me and said, you have a child. That's where you start. That's the most important discipleship you could ever make following this walk. So I just wanted to thank you for, talking about how it's not, how it's not so important. It's the small stuff.
Look, some of you, because of isolation, could really use a pen pal, an email pal, texting pal, whatever, Facebook pal. I mean, there are people that just feel isolated and alone. And some of you that are isolated and alone, maybe that's one of your talents and gifts is to interact with people that are other places, because we have lots of people like you. Maybe you could talk to other people like you. We got a lady in Norway that's like you, that she's kind of isolated. We got a lot of people like that. And so, as a matter of fact, I just got a phone call from a lady. I think she might be on now because I think she's on the live stream from Jamaica. And she was trying to figure out a way to come to our feast because she's got nobody where she is. Okay, and so we had a lady in Trinidad also. We got another, we've got people in different places. And so, by the way, we also have people in every state of the United States too that are isolated and by themselves. And it may be your talent and gift to say, maybe I'm going to help people feel less disconnected and less alone by just reaching out and being their friend. You don't have to reach out and teach them Torah and reach out about all this stuff. Just be their friend. Be their family member. Be their sister, their brother. Some of you are really good at that. Others are not. Then walk in the stuff that's natural to you, the stuff that you do that comes easily, That's not the wrong stuff. We have a lot of stuff that's the wrong stuff that comes very easily. But you understand what I'm saying? There already are things that you can do. Because the first way to figure it out is say, if there's something I need, maybe other people need it, maybe I can help meet that need. If I feel alone, maybe there's other people that feel alone. If I'd like someone to call me, maybe other people need a phone call or need a Skype call or whatever it is. So think about that. Whatever you need, probably there's others need the same thing. And that's a place you could start. Amen? Now, I'm hoping that people be excited about actually functionally doing what I'm teaching in this teaching and not just excited about, oh, that sounded nice. Because this is the biggest problem in the body. It's not Sabbath keeping necessarily or calendar and everything else. It's the lack of unity.